We're here in Webster, Massachusetts, and we're at the Slater Museum, which actually you might call it the Slater Mill, because this is actually like being a real mill. And no electricity. Everything had to be run by water power. And they had to have, of course, they had to have coal oil lamps to light your way, but all the looms and all the power equipment ran from the water, from this huge wheel like this. And Barbara, you run it.
That's right.
How did you get involved in it?
The newspaper that I was working for, the Blackstone Valley Express, Yankee Express, was sold, and there's a new owner, and the owner of this project, Chris Robert, asked me to come on board here, and that's what I'm doing ever since. It's coming up to 3 years now.
One of the biggest factors here is this was an armory.
Yes.
And armories are pretty standard looking. It doesn't look like that at all anymore.
No.
This was the drill floor.
Yeah.
And I mean, what you've done with it is just amazing. And the collection of goods you've got, that's what really amazes me, because a lot of these items are over 200 years old.
You can see the images we have throughout, images
Yes.
of faces and so on. And people will try to look for relatives or people, like I said, it really brings it home. There's an immediacy to it because
Yes.
of all the photographs we have as well as the artifacts. But the people's stories really bring it to life. When you see a picture there of the kids who worked in the mill, and you can see that their clothes are covered with bits of cotton. And you think about how when they were working in the mill, there was cotton everywhere, and they were breathing that stuff.
Yes.
And these were kids.
Yes.
And you think of the danger, not just physically because of the equipment, but dangerous to your health.
Yeah, you had the
that's
brown lung disease.
And tuberculosis and just
Yes, it's quite common. And these cotton bales would come in as raw cotton, big, huge bales. I remember that. I lived in Northbridge, down in Rockdale, and I'm old enough to remember when the train would come in and they'd have these big bales in the box cars, and they'd wheel them into the mill.
Harry, if anybody wants to see a cotton bale, we have 5 of them here. So
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, it's
I'm
something
doing
to
one
see.
right in the lobby.
Yeah, I know, we came in. It's really something to see. And these things are huge, and they had to take these off of a train car and bring, well, actually back when this first started, they came by ship into Providence, and they moved them by cart. So think about how hard they worked. And the average work day was 10 to 12 hours. And it was 6 days a week. You got Sunday off.
But if you're a kid, you had to go to Sunday school on Sunday.
And yeah, you had to go to
And
Sunday.
that's when they would make sure they told you how to behave. So
Yes.
And Samuel Slater was a huge proponent of Sunday school because he felt that moral imperative made them better workers in his mills.
They needed to teach them to read and write and some of the basics.
And they would over time, but it wasn't like so much time a week. Although I have to say, in some mill owners might have done that. Here, it was more random, having to do with when there was work in the mills and when there was not work.
Yeah, because the most important thing was production in the mill. And it was kids. It was not adults for the most part. It was kids. Women, not kids. It wasn't the men. The men might have handled the heavy stuff, moving the cotton bales around and things like that. But it was women working the looms, the kids working the looms. Especially the kids could get underneath and into places where the adults couldn't fit, so they could get stuff out. Yeah, it was, and that happened right up until the 1930s, when they finally passed laws against child labor. But yeah, it is quite, and I think kids today need to see this, to see what it's really started.
Well, and that was the whole intent from the beginning. Chris Robert had the vision for this place. It was to bring kids here to teach them history in a way that they would remember.
Yes.
And you do that not with text panels that look like they're pages out of a history book. Rather, you do it all with media. So everything here is done with with video. And it's all interactive and it's all immersive.
I'm glad Mr. Slater lets brothers work together. That way the big uns look after the little ones. Make sure they don't slack off. Saves the overseer from having to do it. That costs Slater money. Now, go clean up before your father gets home.
But then what we do here is we fast forward 100 years, a century, and show what life was like in the early 1900s. So
Right.
Slater came here to Webster in the early 1800s, 1811 to be exact. And then 100 years later, we see the results of everything that he did there. He made Webster just a thriving economic mill town. It was,
Right,
it was
around the 1900s was actually the climax of the textile industry, and then after that it started going downhill around here.
yes.
But that was a real climax of it, when the mills were thriving all through the Webster and the Blackstone Valley. And
So you'll find here that there's some parallel to today, and you find that throughout this place, that some of the issues that existed 200 years ago, 100 years ago, like immigration, like technology transfer,
Yes.
those things still, you see them today.
Yes.
Still.
yeah, there was questions about some of the Canadian immigrants, they come here legally. That question was back then.
Mm-hmm.
If they were coming out of Quebec, where they were born on farms, it wasn't a good living, and they were coming down here because they heard you could make good money. You worked a lot of hours, you worked hard, but you made good money.
Mm-hmm.
And you raised your standard of living. And that was not uncommon. Same with the Polish immigrants. When they got here, you had to find some work, and this is where they found it. And it actually what made these communities and made them large, and it brought the entertainment in too. And you
Oh,
do
yeah.
that. You show that where the saloons came about, the movie theater. All this came about because of the fact that they had a large population, and someone saw, hey, I can make money with this. It's the American way.
Mhm.
Yeah, great thing.
We don't say, but people have called this like the Disney-like.
It is Disney-like, yes.
The idea is to bring it and tell the story in that way.
Yeah, I mean, you enjoy it. I mean, what do kids know today? They know TV. They know the computer screen or their phone screen. Well, you got it here in real life size. And it's, like I say, it's like someone. I look up here and there's someone walking about.
Yeah.
They start talking, and the audio is so perfect. You'd swear someone was actually in the room. I thought at the post office, it's a speakeasy.
You know the password?
No, I don't.
Alrighty then. Better have enough money to buy us all around.
Reducing the workday by 2 to 4 hours promotes a longer life, more opportunity for personal development.
Yes.
The ice would be,
Yep, that's the ice, and that,
yeah. And then there would be,
as it would melt, it would keep the.
it would drip on, there would be a,
Yeah, you had a drip pan.
yeah.
And here, and put in here is a drip pan. And you had, one of the chores you had as a kid, empty a drip pan.
Later, ready? Yeah.
Yeah, see, they would take a regular plain cloth and they would print that design on it.
Yeah.
And they were doing that up until, like you said, almost, well,
Right, and one of,
almost the end of the century. Last century.
one of the women, people who works here, Sally Patterson, she was a seamstress, and she makes these for
Oh.
us. And she had been She's a lifelong Webster resident and had purchased a lot of Cranston fabric over the years. So now she's turning that into these hangings for us here at the museum, which I think is really cool, don't you?
Yeah, those are nice. That would look nice in your kitchen wall. But what Rihanna does is Rihanna handles the volunteers, and you operate primarily with volunteers, right?
I do.
About 90% of your staff?
Yep.
And so you can come here and actually volunteer, and what a great time. If you like history, or if you love history like I do, you have a good time just taking people around and showing them what it was like 200 years ago. But why don't you let the people know how you can become a volunteer here, what your requirements are?
Well, we have 18 to 20 volunteers now. They all come from various areas of central Massachusetts and Connecticut. They all had many of them are retirees. They all came from different career backgrounds, but all have a passion for history. Not a ton of requirements. We ask that you be at least 16 years old, and you come in, we chat with you, we learn a little bit about you, and we provide you with all the information you could need. So somebody who may not be familiar with the Slater story or familiar with Webster doesn't have to worry too much about it. It's something you can easily kind of slip on into. And we provide opportunities for you to meet other guides and learn how they guide and what they recommend for approaching the position.
If you're a student, history major, this might be somewhere you can pick up some credits, right?
Very much so. We offer volunteer shifts on the weekends.
Yeah.
So, great way for you to get some volunteer hours in if you're a high school student looking for National Honor Society hours.
Yes.